XO 1430 AM. My name is Rob Hall. We welcome you into the broadcast. We're brought to you today by T.G. Brooks Company, Sandling Golf Cars and Trailers, and Owl Pride Foods, makers of Owl Pride Premium Pimento Cheese Spread and Dip. Want to say an extra special thanks to T.G. Brooks Company for making us feel at home last week when we were there live on the scene for the Gardener's Corner program. Also, special thanks to the job that Kilbeat does, Mr. Bratcher, also to Paul Westfall, and also a big old thank you today and last week going out to Johnny Coley of the North Carolina Cooperative Extension Service. He is a horticultural agent for Person and Granville counties, and we had a good time out there last week, and
We did. You were right saying that they make you feel at home. Whenever you go out there, you feel like you're part of the family just about when you go out to the T.G. Brooks and company out there. It is, get closer to the mic here today.
you want to hear everything.
But it's always a privilege to go out there, and very, very knowledgeable and friendly folks out there, and have just about anything. You look around that store, and I've said it before, but if they don't have it, you probably don't need it.
Good point. And both Bill and Roy, they keep up with the pulse of the community in the surrounding counties, and they do their best to provide whatever it may be in their line that their customers need. And not only do they walk the walk, but they know how to talk the talk.
Yeah.
And always Roy, he you can talk to him and you can find that he takes pride in his landscape and plants and things like that. I think that what we need to do is to get Roy to come in and take my place on the show sometimes, and let you and him do a show, on horticultural stuff, because a lot of the questions that Roy usually will ask is about things that he has experienced in his own landscape. And me, I don't do a lot of gardening.
He always keeps me on my toes when I go out.
Well, that's good. That's good. So anyway, but again, thanks to T.G. Brooks, and we are very appreciative of all of our sponsors. We are live in the studio today. Matter of fact, last week we had a few calls into the station, and Walker was here at the station, and the caller would ask the question, and Walker would end up texting me the question. So we answered a few, that way.
I think some pruning questions last week on some azaleas and dogwoods and such. So you can still do some pruning, especially like I said, like last week, the azaleas. Anything that's bloomed already this spring, a good time to prune them is right after they finish blooming. So if you have some azaleas that have faded and they're not, the blooms aren't looking so good, and getting those old blooms off often helps with fungus control too, because those old blooms, as they fade, they'll get some botrytis, and normally doesn't bother the leaves too bad, but you can get some build up. We've actually, I've used the word dry describing how we are now for the first time probably in 9 months. We've really gotten a little bit drier, so that helps with fungus. You don't have as much disease problems if you have some drier weather. But getting those azaleas, shaped up, pruned up a little bit, and anything, like I said, that has already bloomed, the forsythias, some of the spireas have already bloomed. There are some summer blooming spireas, but the spring blooming spireas can be pruned. The camellias, a lot of Camellia japonicas. This was probably one of the best years for Camellia japonicas that I can remember in a long time. We just didn't get that hard freeze when they were budding and beginning to flower, and they just lasted a long time this year. In fact, throughout the season, Rob, I think we've had a great blooming season for all our spring plants. They probably bloom as long or longer than they have in a lot of years, because we just didn't get that last little cold snap that we usually get that we'll freeze them back. So they were able to really show their stuff this year. But yeah, camellia, japonicas, you can prune those back a little bit late probably for the camellias sasanquas. They may be already setting some buds because they bloom in the fall. But yeah, that's always good to sort of shape them up. You don't want to do any hard pruning this time of year, like no more than maybe a third of the plant. But you can cut it back a third and be okay. And depending on the plant, maybe a half. But you don't really want to do the rejuvenation pruning that we've talked about.
Okay. Some good information. I think we have a caller online right now, so let's check him out. Thank you for calling the Gardener's Corner program.
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning.
Do you know anything about good apple trees?
Anything about what now?
Apple trees.
Apple trees. Yeah, what's your question?
All right, I bought some apple trees, and I bought them down here, and I watered them for a couple days before I planted them. And they had some yellow bumps on the leaves.
That sounds like cedar apple rust, probably. You got little bumps. It's a good description. Sort of orangish yellow. Sounds like the cedar apple rust. It's a fungus that gets on. They overwinter on cedar trees, and they'll get on the apple trees during this time of year. Some apples are more susceptible to it than others. Usually doesn't kill the apple tree at the point that you see the symptoms, which is what you're seeing now. It's a little late to spray them. So at this point, just any leaves that fall off that might have the fungus on it, just clean those leaves up. If you've got a cedar tree real close to the apples, you might want to consider maybe getting rid of that. I mean, the spores can carry for a long way, so you're not going to get rid of all the cedar trees, of course, in this area. But that is one of probably the biggest diseases that the apples will get, especially affecting the leaves. But that's most likely what you have this time of year. Like, you're not going to want to spray that now. Usually when you spray them, it's when the leaves first start coming out, and like a chlorothalonil product, something with that active ingredient, or a fruit tree spray, Captan in it. I think chlorothalonil is probably a better spray for the cedar apple rust, or mancozeb. But it's that's what it is. But it's not at this point. No need to spray for it.
Either way, we do appreciate the call, and that's a good question. And with apple trees or any kind of fruit trees, you have to be on pretty much a spray schedule, for fungi and fungus and other things. But what you may want to consider next year, about the time that the trees start to sprout leaves, you may want to consider doing some spraying then. But,
yeah. And you can contact me. I'll be glad to send you some information on what to spray them with, and that way you'll have it in print.
We do appreciate the call.
Can I ask one more question?
Yes, sir.
That's the three trees that don't got it on.
They may have. Is it? Are they all the same varieties?
Yes, sir.
Huh. Well. Yeah, may just not have the spores may not have affected that plant. I'd be glad to take a look at it if I'm not going to be back in Person County probably about the middle of next week. But I could if you could bring some up to the extension office, some of the leaves that have it on there, just I could make sure that's what we're looking at. But I have seen that. I've seen where it could affect one tree and not another. But yeah, for Positive ID, if you want to bring some leaves up there, and you can bring them up there today or Monday, and they'll put it in the refrigerator for me, and I'll look at them Wednesday when I get back up there.
Okay, like I said, I went on calling because when I bought the tree, it had 2 or 3 leaves on it, and I pulled them off. And about 4 days later, I went ahead and planted all the trees and watered it, and now it's all over that tree. And the other ones got nothing on.
Huh? So they don't. Yeah, they may have. They may not have been close enough to the cedar to get affected or something. They, for some reason they did not get the fungus, but I don't know. I don't know why they would have it. Some would have it, and some would not. It just maybe depend on the location they were at when the fungus was on the cedar tree and was the spores started sporulating the spring.
Okay. All right. I'll see if I get some up that money.
Okay.
Thank you,
sir.
Appreciate the call. Good question. Our listeners, if you were unable to hear the question, he purchased some apple trees and he watered them and kept them there at the place, a short period before he planted them. And he noticed something odd looking on the leaves.
Yeah.
And Johnny pretty much diagnosed it over the phone as cedar apple rust. And we talked about it sometimes back. If you do have an orchard of trees, if you have a cedar tree close by, it'd be a good idea for you to just go ahead and remove the cedar tree. Now, if you've got a lot of cedars on your farm, it's probably not the best place to plant apple trees.
Yeah.
We're going to get a word on right now for Our Pride Foods, makers of Our Pride Premium Pimento Cheese Spread and Dip. It's that time of the year where you may be out in the yard working late in the evening. Well, it's always nice to have some Our Pride Premium Pimento Cheese Spread and Dip on hand if you want a quick snack or have it as a meal.
Our Pride Foods, makers of Our Pride Premium Pimento Cheese Spread and Dip, is made in Roxborough. Pick up some the next time you're shopping at Hurdle Mills Market and Butcher Shop, North Main IGA, Supply Line Discounts in South Boston, Virginia, Food Lion, or Kenyon's Meat Market in Mebane. You can enjoy Our Pride Premium Pimento Cheese Spread and Dip at Rock City Grill, Cole's Pharmacy, Triss's Espresso, and Clarksville Station. Our Pride Foods, makers of Our Pride Premium Pimento Cheese Spread and Dip, remind you that goodness grows in North Carolina. Try the jalapeno added for extra flavor. That's Our Pride Premium Pimento Cheese Spread and Dip.
Here we are back on the Gardener's Corner program. Johnny Coley is our man on the scene, and we appreciate the job that Johnny does. Johnny, in some of these years ago TV shows, they would
Don't
talk
go back
about...
too far, Rob. I'm not as old as you are. So.
Well, good point. And thank you for reminding me of that, too. I appreciate that. I love you, too, Johnny. Anyway, it used to be like at the end of one of these police stories or whatever, they would say at the end, we have changed the name to protect the innocent and all this stuff. Well, I was by a location earlier in the week. Not going to say where I was at. Not going to say what town, what county, or anything. But I noticed it was a lot of potted tomato plants there at this location, and they were for sale. Mm-hmm. And these tomato plants looked as if they were maybe 2 to 3 foot tall, and they already had tomatoes on them. Now, some folks may say, well, here's the golden opportunity to buy a tomato plant and plant it, and it's already got tomatoes on it. Now, is this a good thing or not so good thing?
Well,
again, we're not going to mention any names, locations, anything.
We used to have tomato. We used to raise tomatoes in the greenhouse and nursery, and we'd always start them early. So get in 1 gallons. Often they would bloom and they would get some fruit on them. It depends on which side you're on. If you're selling them, you're going to say, well, this is guaranteed to bear fruit, because you got fruit already on them. It depends on how big the fruit is, how long it's been developed on the plant, and how well the plant's been taken care of. If you plant it and get the plant to continue to grow, it would probably continue to develop that fruit. If it's been on there and it takes a lot of energy for plants to put on fruit. So if it's been stunted or stressed in any way, you might be better off to go ahead and take those fruit off and just let it rebloom and start again. A lot of, and especially fruit trees. Now we don't do that with vegetables, of course, because of the growing season. You're not 1 year is all you're going to get fruit off of most of the vegetables. The apple trees, blueberries, plants like that, you take the blooms off actually the first couple of 3 years because you don't want them to bloom. You don't want them to produce fruit because of the energy that it takes. I'm not going to do that with tomatoes, of course, peppers, or anything. Peppers probably produce, well in the containers, and tomatoes will. The main thing with tomatoes is a big enough pot so the plant doesn't stress, and you could stunt the size of fruit that you might have if you don't have it in a large enough pot. So it's a lot of variables there. I feel like a politician. I'm dodging the answer to the question, but
dancing around the question.
But that's if I were to buy one with the fruit on it, if it was a Cherokee Purple, which is my wife's favorite, I would never pull a bloom or fruit off of a Cherokee Purple in hopes that it would produce something. But would give it a chance. If it looked like it was gonna be small before it started ripening, might just go ahead and take it off and let the other ones produce a little bit larger fruit. So it's it depends a lot on how that plant's been handled.
Okay, so it could be good, and it could not be so good.
Yeah.
Well,
you wouldn't want a fruit to be on a plant that was maybe still in a 4-pack. Because
right, okay.
that's
But
that's
if
been
it's in a
stressed.
container with plenty of soil,
Yeah.
it's probably good to go
Yeah.
then. Well,
Yeah.
I appreciate you clarifying that, because I was thinking that sometimes when, say, a tomato plant becomes, I'm going to call it root bound in something, that it will sometimes start to bear fruit in hopes of saving its own life.
Exactly. If it's under stressful situations, which a lot of plants will, a lot of plants that are really struggling and just trying to live, they will put out blooms, they'll put out vegetation, they'll do anything they can to make their lifespan a little longer. So they're going to try to produce, and a lot of plants will do that if they're stressful, put out fruit, but always they may be just trying to survive rather than actually going to be a healthy plant. So
Right.
As long as the plant's not root bound, and been in a 3-gallon or a gallon container for too long, then it'll be fine.
Anyway, Johnny not only is a guest from time to time here on the Gardener's Corner program, he also does some consulting work with, is it WPTF?
Yes, sir. Yeah, WPTF over in Raleigh.
And you're going to be
Weekend Gardener.
on there tomorrow, correct?
Yep. Over
Now,
at Witherspoon. We're doing a
Witherspoon.
location.
Y'all will be live on location.
Yes, sir.
And now that's about a 3-hour show, isn't it, Johnny?
It is 8 to 11. 8 to 11.
And so if y'all want to check out, I'm not asking you to tune away from WKRX.
No, not at all.
But you can check out WPTF AM radio tomorrow between 8 and 11. And Johnny will be on there along with Mike Rayleigh, and it'll be a couple of other people on there as well. won't it?
And Clapp and Rufus Edmondson usually joins us, and I don't know if anybody else will or not. But
And
that'll
y'all talk about horticultural issues and a little
Yeah.
bit of everything, right?
It's anything that comes up, we'll talk about.
Well, anyway, but Johnny, we do appreciate the job that you do. Miss Jennifer Grable sent some information out, and we're going to pass some information along to you now. Ever been told you are pre-diabetic? Have you had a blood test within the last year and your blood sugar was 101 to 125 and your A1C was 5.7 to maybe 6.4? Well, here's something for you that you may want to contact the Person County Cooperative Extension Service office and go ahead and register for the Diabetes Prevention Program. It starts June 6th, and this will be a Thursday, and it will run through September 19th. And this will be held Thursdays, again, June the 6th through September 19th, between 12 noon and 1 p.m. And it's going to be at the county office building, room 166, and the county office building is located 304 South Morgan Street in Roxborough. It's a cost of $25 for the entire program. Registration deadline is May 31st. Space is limited. You can call 336-599-1195, or you can call the Person County Health Department at 336-597-2204, extension 2277. And again, that starts up on Thursday, June the 6th. Registration deadline will be May 31st.
And talking about that, Rob, was talking to Jennifer about this earlier before we left, and she said if you can call Leanne Crescent at the health department, that's the best place. She can give you information about that. So,
and again, that number.
Yeah, go ahead.
You go ahead.
336-597-2204, extension 2277. Taking away the paper. Just testing my memory this morning. All right.
Yeah, I figured I'd see, if you kind of like looked at it and took a
photographic memory.
Yeah,
I don't have
so
that.
That's what I kind of pulled it away from you. But anyway, just go ahead and get signed up for that. Johnny, just a few days ago, actually 2 days this week, I went out with a short sleeve shirt on, and I had to regroup, and I put on a sweatshirt.
Yeah, it was 40 degrees one morning at the house this week. It was about the coldest night or the coldest morning that I saw was 40. We're in southern Granville County, so up here in Person County, we probably got into the high 30s a couple of mornings.
Anyway, they're saying that maybe later today and tomorrow we're going to be in the high 80s. Over around Wake County area, they're talking 90 degrees.
Yeah, that's amazing. I told somebody yesterday, if you don't like the weather in North Carolina, just hang around a couple of days. It'll change for you. It's going to give us a little taste of summer this weekend, and that's the plants are I think they're probably ready for it. Up and down like that doesn't affect them too bad as long as it doesn't stay one way or the other too long.
Right.
I think everything will be okay, but it is something to pay attention to as far as your newly planted plants, your hanging baskets, or your potted plants maybe that you just planted, even the ones in the ground. It's going to take a little more moisture, maybe a little more water for them when those temperatures go up. You want to water the ground, I think we've mentioned this before on the program, but whenever you water, you don't want to water the top of your plant. Some plants might be able to take up some moisture through the leaf, but most of the time you're going to have water absorption or moisture taken up by the roots, and so you don't really want to wet your plants from the top. You want to wet the soil around them, and just keep an extra eye on them when the temperatures get up a little higher. And a lot of times at 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, if you see your plants wilting, it may not be that they need water. Maybe they've gotten a little hot. So wait till it cools down. If they're still wilting after the sun gets off of them or later in the evening, you might want to give them a drink. But yeah, usually, 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, if it's 90 degrees, a lot of newly planted plants will show a little stress a little bit, but it's not necessarily needing water. It's just that it's transpiring quicker than it can take up moisture, but the moisture is at the root system. So.
Well, Johnny, with that being said, I've heard that you're better off to water your plants and all earlier in the day than late in the evening, because if you are watering your plant, say with a sprinkler system or whatever, that if the plant is wet as night falls, you're kind of maybe inviting the chance of maybe some diseases and or funguses to come in, to where if you water earlier in the day, that plant will be done dried off before nightfall.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, that's there's 3 things you need for a disease to occur. You need the pathogen, the actual disease or pathogen. You need the host for that pathogen, and you need the correct conditions for that pathogen to grow. And if one of those conditions for the pathogen to grow is moisture, then you're providing that moisture there for it as it's growing, and the as the night times cool off a little bit, or you don't get the sun, they don't dry off as quickly, so they can stay wet longer, and that could you're right, it could invite different fungi to start growing a little bit quicker. So watering in the morning, or if you have to water late in the evening, don't get the top of the plant wet. Just don't just water the base of the plant.
Well, I was going to ask, are you a fan of these soaker hoses?
I like soaker hoses. Soaker hoses, 2 things: they put the moisture where they need to be, and it's usually less water. You usually doesn't require as much water. You can just turn your soaker hose on and leave it for, depending on your soil, you could leave it for an hour or 2 running and just really soak the soil good. And then you don't need to run it. It waters it deeply. It gets the soil watered deeply how you want to do that, so the plant's roots will get down into the soil, rather than just, if you water shallow, then the roots stay on top, and the first dry spell you get, they dry out even quicker, and you have to water them even more. So if you can get those roots established early to go deep with some deep watering, then they'll stand a lot better chance in July and August when it gets hot and dry.
Okay. Let's get a word on for Sandling Golf Cars and Trailers, located 613 Lewis Street in Oxford. Hopefully you got your golf cart in good shape for spring and summertime. But if you don't, Sandling Golf Cars and Trailers in Oxford can help you out with that chore.
Sandling Golf Cars and Trailers, located 613 Lewis Street in Oxford. Open for business Monday through Friday, 8 to 5:30, Saturdays 9 till 1. Call 919-693-4626, toll free 1-800-221-9267. Visit the website sandlinggolfcars.com. There you will find a full line of Club Car, E-Z-GO, and Yamaha golf cars, new and pre-owned. They are a Trojan battery dealer. If you're in need of parts and service, Sandling Golf Cars and Trailers can help you out. 613 Lewis Street in Oxford. You'll find Wilmington Grills, all kinds of utility trailers. Are you in need of a flatbed? See Al, Hillary, and Will at Sandling Golf Cars and Trailers. Call 919-693-4626. Toll free 1-800-221-9267.
And to me.
Here we are back on the Gardener's Corner program. Johnny, I'll try to get your answer to the question you just asked me a little while ago. My computer is acting real slow this morning.
Oh, is it?
So let me, give me a chance to dwell on it. Not think about it, but let me dwell on it.
Dwell on it. Okay, not just think, but you're going to dwell. That's some serious thinking.
Absolutely. We're live in the studio today, and we'd love to hear from you if you've got a gardening issue going on. We were talking last week, Johnny. Paul Westfall was saying that thought it had been a good season for fescue grasses. For those folks that have fescue grasses in your lawn, it's not the best time of year to put fertilizer down. If you put any down, you would just want to make a light application.
Yeah.
But those folks that have Bermuda grasses, it'll be time to start fertilizing them in early July.
Yes, sir. Yeah, even late May, May, June, you can go ahead and start fertilizing your your warm season grasses, whether it's zoysia, Bermuda. There are some centipede yards in the area, not a whole lot, but probably for your warm season grasses, probably Bermuda grass, and there's several different varieties of it. It's probably the most popular. Zoysia is a very good warm season grass. A little bit more expensive to get established, a little bit slower to get established than your Bermuda. Centipede, we're in what they call the transition zone for turf grasses anyway, so we can grow the cool season and warm season. Centipede does better a little bit further east of us, or even south and east, I guess, not just east. But there are some people, I know a couple of people that have centipede in the Creemore area. Usually does perform very well. But your warm season grasses, you can go ahead and fertilize now. Normally your warm season grasses don't require the fertilizer that maybe your Bermuda does. So, a half a pound to a pound of nitrogen per 1,000 square feet. Then you can do that again a little bit later on in the summer. Just don't want to do that. Just as you don't want to fertilize your fescue yards now, you don't want to fertilize your Bermuda grass and your warm season grasses as it cools off in the late summer, early fall. You don't want to push them too far into the fall when they're starting to go dormant. So the fescue, a lot of the fescues, they'll go dormant this time of year, or fescue in general goes, not this time of year, I take that back, but in the summertime, as it warms up, they sort of slow up and they go a little bit more dormant. So, pushing them through the summer with fertilizer, unless you can give it plenty of moisture, you don't want to push them too hard in the summertime. But you could do a light application, half a pound of nitrogen or something like that with a fescue. But heavy nitrogen fertilization has been linked to some brown patch, some of the fungus that can be caused. So there are some debates, and there is research being done on that all the time. So things change when they find out from research that it's different than what we've said in the past. So I know some of the pathologists over at NC State's doing some research on the effects of the fertilizer and the fungus as we go through the season. But yeah, this is definitely the time of year to start your Bermuda, and a lot of times, Rob, people say, well, I want to have a Bermuda and a fescue yard. I want to have the warm season and a cool season and have the best of both worlds. You don't have it looking nice in the spring and the fall with the cool season, summertime with the warm season. The problem with that is the fertilization schedule. You can't, and a lot of the treatments you're going to be doing for fescue, it'll be on the wrong time of year to do that for the Bermuda, and vice versa with the Bermuda. It's not the time of year to fertilize like now for the fescue. It is the time to do the Bermuda. So it's hard to have a cool and warm season grass in the same.
Well, I know how you could do it, Johnny.
How's that?
Well, what you could do is, if you got a lot of money, what you could do is, you could have your house and property on a turntable. In the backyard, have cool season grasses, and in the front yard, have warm season grasses. And so then as the season changes, just rotate the front of the house to the back and the back to the front.
That would have to be a big yard, Rob, because you're going from a cool season climate to a warm season climate. You got to switch.
Well, but it would take a while to make this transition. You know what I mean?
It would.
It'd be like you'd be looking at it and you say, is it moving or is it standing still?
Oh, so like the Earth, like Earth itself. Okay,
that's right. Yeah. So
well, we can work on that. I'll see if we can get. We can write a grant and see if we can get
absolutely.
Get
the grant money would be wonderful. I'm pretty sure we couldn't guarantee or show any results, but the grant money would come in handy, wouldn't it?
Yeah. You gotta show some results with that grant money though, and it could
but-
be ongoing research. So
But I did jokingly say that, and but yes, when we have several days of 90-degree weather, it's really hard on the fescue grasses. But one thing that you can kind of do is when you trim the lawn, don't scalp it. Maybe leave at least a 2.5 to 3 inch blade of grass up on top, and that will kind of help shade the roots.
Keep it cooler. Yeah, especially your fescue.
Help it look better,
Yeah, fescue, your 3 to 4 inch, cut. 3 inch really is the shortest you should cut your fescue.
3 inches.
Yeah, 3 inches you shouldn't cut any shorter than that. But and 3 to 4 is better. So your fescue lawns you definitely don't want to cut. And your warm season grasses, Bermudas, and your centipedes you can cut very short. And your Bermudas and your zoysia you can cut shorter.
I was
than
gonna
that.
say your warm season grasses you can.
They tolerate
pretty much,
that. They tolerate
scalp
that
those
cold.
grasses,
Yeah,
correct?
Yeah. Well, you don't want to scalp, but shorter. I was just say shorter. But one thing, you mentioned, if you had a lot of money, if you had a lot of resources, or if you just like being out in the yard and doing yard work, you could, kill off your warm season grass every year and then plant your fescue and then plant your, you could go back and forth like that. But that would be very, very high maintenance, unless you had a resort area. You probably wouldn't want to go to that expense or that trouble to do that.
Well, I was by a place yesterday, and these people had a lot of shade in the yard, and they had a beautiful, beautiful, well-groomed landscape. And I talked to the gentleman, and I said, I just want to tell you, I said, y'all have a beautiful home and a beautiful landscape. I said, I know y'all work hard for it. And he told me, he said, I'm thinking about where I've been putting mulch out. He said, I'm thinking about doing a transition of putting these different colored rocks. He said, I have to keep replenishing the mulch to keep the colors I want. He said, but maybe if I try some of these, they have different colored stones. He said, that would cost me more money. He said, but maybe they would kind of hold the original color a little bit longer. Thank you for calling the Gardener's Corner program. How can we help you today?
Rob, I got a question. I got a water stove, outside water stove.
Uh-huh.
Ashes I get out of that, can you put them in a compost pile or put them in the garden or anything like that?
You can do that with your ashes. The wood ash, and depends on the wood that it comes from, but most of the wood ash is you're going to have potash in it, which is potassium. Again, depending on the analysis, but usually you're going to have around a 4% potassium content in those potash. The biggest nutrient you're going to get from is actually calcium. And calcium is going to raise your pH. Your lime has calcium in it, so it's going to raise your pH. And usually, 15 to 20% of the nutrients in the ashes are going to be calcium. So you can do it. Just have to be careful as far as your pH goes, and not get too heavy with it. But it's a good. Yeah, we use our ashes in the compost. Just have to, not put too much on there so the pH goes too high for you. But a lot of times what you're putting in your compost pile is organic matter, which pH is usually a little bit lower anyway. So it does help buffer that pH by putting that in there. So you can, that's the biggest issue, but it does add nutrients, and it is good to put some ashes in your garden or in your compost pile.
Right, thanks, sir.
Hey, good question. We appreciate the call. When he was just asking the question, Johnny, we also have an outside wood burning furnace, and we actually have this bin that we shovel the ashes out of the heater into this bin, and then we go and dump them. We don't use them in a garden or anything. But anyway, I've heard some people say that they really like to take the ashes and scatter them out on the garden spot. But one thing that maybe you could do is if you had several different areas where you could put these ashes, it would maybe be a little bit better instead of putting them all in the same spot.
Exactly.
Let's get a word on for T.G. Brooks Company, in business since 1936. Friendly people there to serve you. And like Johnny said, if T.G. Brooks doesn't have it, you most likely don't need it at all.
The month of May is such a beautiful time. T.G. Brooks Company is ready for you for the garden season. It's time to have fun and beautify. They've got your tomato plants, the popular local varieties. They have pepper plants, cantaloupe, plenty of vegetables, squash, cucumber, okra, eggplant, watermelon, cauliflower, and plenty of flowers, petunias, celosia, impatiens, verbena, marigolds, Easter bonnet, herbs like basil, chives, thyme, oregano, dill, cilantro, peppermint. They've got lavender. Come to T.G. Brooks and get your fresh garden seeds, fresh and ready for planting. Reseed your lawn with clean, fresh grass seed. And they have the fertilizer and lime. If you need mulch, they've got it, even the triple ground mulch. Do you need straw, pine needles? How about potting soil, planting soil, or cow manure? They have spreaders and they have aerators for sale or rent. T.G. Brooks Company serves the homeowner and the commercial landscaper, and they handle everybody with the same courteous service. They'll arrange delivery, or you can pull in with your pickup truck, your trailer. They'll load it up for you. They have bagged products that they'll load up for you. It's exciting that May is here and the full-time growing season. Top off your day with a hand-cut ribeye steak from T.G. Brooks. Mouth-watering. Hurry out to 411 Helena Mariah Road in Timberlake. Phone them at 364-2428. They've proudly served the homeowner, the farmer, and those in construction since way back in 1936. They welcome folks from all over Person County, Rougemont, Northern Durham, and of course, Southern Person County.
Here we are back on the Gardens of Water program. Anyway, the things that we do during commercial breaks.
Yeah.
And I was just telling them about a little Jerry
Jerry
Clower.
Clower,
Yeah.
Great Jerry Clower.
The mouth of the South.
Yep. Great storyteller.
Yes,
Great
sir.
storyteller.
He could take a not so interesting tale and make it funny, and I can take a very interesting tale and make it boring. Kind of
very
transform
good.
it, so to speak. All right, Johnny, what else you got you want to make mention
Well,
of
I was
today?
going to mention, I always have probably run the saying that the planting your vegetables is the easiest thing to do in the springtime. But now that we've got them planted, now that everything's planted, and we're and still probably some people still planting some things. My wife planted some vegetables in the raised bed at our house yesterday, and it is easy to get them planted. We're going to go on from this, Rob. We don't have much time.
Okay.
Yeah, she did plan. Well, that's the easy part, as I've said.
Right.
Of course, I can't say that I do much taking care of them either. But she'll run some issues by me sometimes if she has problems, and I'll try to find a horticulture agent that can answer. But now is the time once you've got them in the ground. The heat we mentioned earlier is beginning to come on. That's going to add a little more stress to our plants. This cool weather we've had, that's utopia for the plants. They like a little bit cooler at night, a little warmer in the day. We've had some moisture. Everything's been hunky dory. Now we're going to throw some heat in there, stress the plant a little bit. You may see some insects and diseases start showing up. So just you really want to be diligent on scouting your plants through this time of year, because if you can catch those issues early, that is the best time to do it. The insects are a whole lot easier to control when you have just one plant that has them on it, or if you just have a few insects. It's a whole lot easier to control than when you walk out there and your whole garden is covered with a certain, whether it's aphids, whiteflies, whatever might be on your plants. Doing a diligent scouting process through this time of year, and normally don't tell people to spray preventatively, but when it comes to fungus and a lot of the diseases, you do need to spray on a preventative basis when you've had this issue. Powdery mildew and downy mildew, probably your number ones as far as in the garden. And downy mildew, it's just hard to get control of it once you get it. So spraying on a preventative measure for some of the fungus that we get is probably a good thing. I've mentioned the chlorothalonil. Chlorothalonil, there's several brand names that has the active ingredient chlorothalonil, and that's a good vegetable spray fungus that is labeled. Just make sure that your vegetable, whatever you're spraying, is labeled, is on the label for that product. But just keep an eye out for different diseases, and also insects. Insects are just a whole lot easier to control when you keep that population down. And also the weeds. We all know that the weeds are going to grow twice as fast as the plants. For some reason, they're more efficient in taking up the nutrients than the plants are. Not necessarily, but anyway, it seems that anyway they just grow quickly. And keeping ahead of the weeds, before they get so tall or taller than the plants. You can do some chemical spray if they're short enough, but the weed scientist over at NC State, Dr. Joe Neal, said he hasn't met a plant yet or a weed yet that is resistant to the hand or the hoe. Because you can usually get rid of any weed by pulling it up or hoeing it out and getting rid of it that way. So it's not always the funnest or the easiest way to do it, but it's a lot of times the most effective and safest way to do it.
Well, you're right. It would take a real hard weed to fight off that hand hoe for sure. It sure would. Well, looks like we are about out of time. Again, we appreciate everybody tuning in, Johnny. Appreciate you doing what you do, and
Appreciate being here. If anybody does have any questions on